Hi everybody, welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm joined again by comedian Dwayne Perkins.
Yes.
From Comedy Central and the Conan O'Brien Show. And we're talking about the new report. There was a report that came out in Ireland about the sexual abuse in Ireland and the cover-up by the church. It was called the Cloyne Report. And it talked about in the county of Cloyne in Ireland, which is why it would be called the Cloyne Report. They did an investigation and found out that 19 priests who were who were accused of sexual pedophilia and things, they were covered up, were never investigated. And this is the Prime Minister of Ireland talking about it right here.
For the first time in this country, a report into child sexual abuse exposes an attempt by the Holy See to frustrate an inquiry in a sovereign democratic republic as little as 3 years ago, not 3 decades ago.
Yeah, but this time the Catholic Church really means it, right? They're not going to do this anymore. They just did it 3 years ago, but this time they're really done with it. Let's look on the bright side. Eventually, all those pedophiles who aren't being investigated will eventually die.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
So they'll be taken care of.
I think the thing too is that they're talking about letting them marry, and I don't know, it's going to be controversial, but I think that's good. I think that's good because then there won't be this safe haven for guys who might be gay, who don't want to explain themselves.
Right.
I'll just do this.
So they'll still have to explain themselves, even if you become a priest. It's like, hey, why don't you marry?
Why don't you marry? Right.
Don't you get married?
Exactly.
Or
be a linebacker.
Or be a linebacker.
That's just jokes.
I'll tell you what the Cloyne Report, it doesn't state this. I'm going to play some more clips from it. But the Cloyne Report does not state that it doesn't report what the Catholic Church did. It did everything it could to get the priests to join the Boy Scouts. So it doesn't bring that up. Okay, so here he's got a little bit more to say about it. Here's the Prime Minister of Ireland.
And in doing so, the Cloyne Report excavates the dysfunction, the disconnection, the elitism that dominate the culture of the Vatican today.
Wow. Well, hey, you find something that works, you stick with it.
Yes, yes. This guy, I like the Prime Minister. They use more words than we do. They use more of the dictionary.
He certainly does use more of the. That doesn't sound like that's not John Boehner. Hey, these guys did stuff,
right?
And we don't like smaller government. He says the Cloyne Report excavates the dysfunction, the disconnection, the elitism that dominate the culture of the Vatican today. Hey, you think the church is bad now? You should have seen it before any of those kids complained. It was much worse.
Yeah.
But that's still only 19 pedophiles in one county out of the thousands of counties also full of pedophiles.
When you hear these abuse cases, you got to think roaches. And here's why I say that.
Why do you say that?
You know I say it, Jimmy, because if you've lived in a project, for instance, and you see one roach, that one roach represents about 300 roaches.
Oh, you know there's more.
Somewhere.
It's not just one roach.
Yeah, in the walls. That was just the one roach who was vocal enough to come out and try to get some crackers.
He's the gutsy.
Yes.
Okay.
So for everyone you hear, you just have to think there are X amount. Who knows what that X is, but it's got to be at least 5, I would say.
5 for every pedophile you see. There's 5 more behind. I'm going to say there's more.
Maybe.
He's got a little bit more to say. Here's the Ireland's Prime Minister.
The rape and the torture of children were downplayed or managed to uphold instead the primacy of the institution, its power, its standing, and its reputation.
Wow. So, but to be fair, throughout the scandal, the church has maintained the same level of prestige it's had since the last 12 scandals. I mean, the church doesn't seem to lose any prestige. They're still a big deal. They still have all the power they're supposed to. No matter how many of these scandals come out, we just find out up to 3 years ago, they were all actively, Cardinal Mahoney had to resign here in Los Angeles,
right.
harboring pedophiles. Not harboring, but actually thwarting investigations from the police into child torture, which is what he used to that's really what it is, torturing children. And we're like, we're going to overlook it.
But how many of these priests do you think themselves were actually molested?
Molested or raped?
Yeah.
I don't know. They say that, I don't know. I don't know.
Only because if
half,
a lot,
I'll say half.
Okay, let's say half. Then they may be looking at this like a farm system. you know what I mean? Because if that led them to the, I don't know. That's how far back it goes, and that's how like deep rooted it is.
Yeah.
You know that They,
They're definitely farming something.
until they were exposed, seems like they didn't even think it was wrong. And that's the scary part of it.
Yes, exactly. There's no problem. The only problem is that it got known.
Right.
That people investigated it. That's what the problem is.
Right,
and it screwed up the church.
And the church shouldn't have the same tone about, pedophilia that I have about sneaking down and getting better seats at a baseball game. You know what I mean?
You're saying they're kind of downplaying the horror.
Yeah,
Well, it's easy to criticize the church, Dwayne, but let's remember, there's two sides to every molestation. Right? Right? And in response to the latest accusations, the church has announced that it will convene a meeting of all its top officials to choose a new pope. That's it.